Yo, what's up, everybody? We are here checking in on Thursday, July 10th, here at the Boston Source. And, I'm just looking here to go ahead and set this up for, our interview so that, we could get this conversation going here, of course, because, we got a great featherweight contender that was, been a past guest here, past, interview here multiple times on the Boston Source. We've had him a good amount of times on. So wanted to see here if we could have this conversation with him once again, because we got, of course, a lot of action that's on slate here for this weekend. And then, we want to try to get things going for these following weekends here on the docket, because we got fights this weekend, we got fights next weekend, and then at the end of July we have fights on Friday and Saturday. So wanted to see here about getting this one here because this is part of the OTX card, OTX 15. There we're supposed to have three feature fights there on the docket, but it's going to be up to 8 total fights that will be on the zone for OTX 15. So want to see if we could go through that fight card as well here. So I wanted to see if I could do that here while I'm getting, see if I could get word from my guests to, pretty much join in if they're able to join in here, as I sent them the link. So I wanted to see if we could go through that here real quick because I'm going to go through the box rec. You know what I mean? I'm going to go through the box rec, see if I can go ahead and share that here real quick, right? And once I do that, then we'll be going over the list of fights, right? So, of course, we got, Elijah Lugo going up against Marquise Williams there. You got Yandiel Lozano Akendo versus Alex Follett. Julio Gomez there against Desmond Lyons. Nathan Lugo there that's going up against Rashad McWilliams. You're going to have Morgan Griggy against Maximus Garland. I'm going to watch for that fight there, too. All right, so I need to make some phone calls reference to all of that too, right? And then you're gonna have Haven Brady Jr., who's also been here as a guest on this channel, going up against the Michael Harris, and you're gonna have O'Shea Jones going up against Elia Carranza for the IBF and IBO Super Welterweight titles there, and main event there, Elijah Pierce going up against Michael Dasmarinas, right? So, and that's going to be there in the featherweight division. So, we, have that as a full card. And we just, looking ahead to that fight weekend. That's going to be a Friday night. Like I said, it's going to be live on the zone there. That's part of OTX Boxing, OTX 15, their 15th presentation of OTX Boxing. And so with these 8 fights, that makes it, be a good amount of action that's on slate for that location there in Atlanta. Usually with OTX Overtime Boxing, they have their fights there in Atlanta. And, with Elijah Pierce, he has had a number of his fights in Atlanta. It's been the past 3 fights there with Mike Plania, Arthur Villanueva, and Jose San Martin. All of those have been in Atlanta, and now he's going up against Michael Dasmarinas there over at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, with Dasmarinas, he, had been a previous opponent of now undisputed super bantamweight champion Naoya Inoue. That was back in 2021. And he has been active ever since, up until, March of this year. So, he's definitely been doing his work up to this particular point, as you see there, with a record of 36 wins, 4 losses with 2 draws. But you got Elijah Pierce there at 20-2 there with 16 of those wins by way of knockout. And, as I mentioned there with those last 3 fights that Elijah Pierce had there at the Overtime Elite Arena in Atlanta, that shows that he's, really been climbing up the ranks there. At the time, it was at 122. as we've been having multiple conversations in the past about him campaigning there at the 122-pound division. Now he's at 126, and as of what I would say a few days ago, or probably like a week ago, he's at number 4 in the WBA rankings for featherweight. So that makes it for him to be like right there in the mix to potentially contend for the world title there at 126 pounds. So kind of see if I could get him here on live. I went ahead and I had sent him, the link to join in, a couple of hours ago. So he should be seeing if we could get ready to join here in just a second. But outside of that, I'm definitely looking forward to what's happening next Friday. Of course, about all the action that's coming up this Friday, right? Over in Madison Square Garden there. So you got that coming up, right? You got, of course, the fights on Saturday. They had a press conference for the fight card on Saturday. A number of people have been talking about that particular press conference and a few things that have happened within that press conference. So, with that being said, I'm looking forward to that fight card as well, particularly with the the two co-main events there with Shakur Stevenson against William Zepeda and Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz. So you have all of that going on there this Saturday in New York City, Friday, Madison Square Garden, Taylor versus Serrano 3, and then Saturday in Queens, New York. You're going to have the double main event there with Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, and also Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz. So with both of those things there, we have some great boxing action here for this weekend. Next weekend, everybody's looking forward to July 19th, undisputed heavyweight title fight. You're going to have Manny Pacquiao returning to the ring. You're going to have Ben Rodriguez defending his titles in the unification bout against Formulator Cafu over in Frisco, Texas. So July 19th, a whole lot of boxing action. July 25th, like I said, here with this OTX card coming up in Atlanta. And then July 26th, you're going to have, a fight card there at the theater at Madison Square Garden, headlined by Xander Zayas versus Jorge Garcia Perez for the WBO Super Welterweight titles. And you're also going to have Bruce Carrington that's going to be there in action as well. So you're going to see Bruce Carrington fight for what is going to be the WBC interim championship at featherweight against Mateus Hayter. Shout out to my guy, brother Thomas Hill, here, live with us, man. We had like a whole bunch of boxing talk last night. Pretty much like ran into almost 4 a.m. You know what I mean? We was talking about fights and going over fights and watching fights until like about 4 a.m. That was crazy. You know what I mean? But that was a whole good conversation, going through a couple of fights from David Morrell Jr. and also seeing a few other fights, from the past there. What is it? Canizales, right? And then you also seen something from Fumulene Cafu, who's going to be fighting Ben Rodriguez. So we were just dissecting a few things here and there with a number of fights. They're talking with Brother Ant McQueen on that front. But with that being said, still trying to look for our special guests, see if they're able to join in once again. I'm going to see here if I could like copy and paste it here for him to get on ahead and join. So let's see here. And with that being said, I'm just looking forward to what's going on this weekend. I still have something on slate for tomorrow, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah, Canizales special, man. I'm telling you that footwork, man. Canizales, that was absolutely insane, man. You got brother Just Do Boxing here in the building. Here, peace to you, man. I hope you enjoyed the press conference here. That was it for Saturday's card, man. Like I was saying, man, I'm gonna be out there for that Saturday card, man. It's gonna be an interesting. I say it's gonna be an interesting scene out there for Ring 3. Having these events be at these venues that aren't necessarily known for having boxing events there. That makes things kind of interesting, so to speak. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. Like I said, they got 6 fights scheduled. Their total for that. So they say doors open at 6 o'clock p.m. or whatnot. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means that we could have a night where all of the fights are done by maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. But given that it's like Ring 3 and Turkey Allah Sheik and them is involved in it, I don't know if it's gonna end at no like 10 o'clock. It'll probably end at like 12 or something. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I'm looking at as far as like that Saturday card. And of course with the Friday card, you got a lot of title fights involved with that women's fight card that's gonna be live on Netflix and it'll be at Madison Square Garden. So we got that. You know what I mean? All right. So yeah, like I said, I reached out to the guests. Hopefully you're able to get on. Like I said, I did get like a little bit of a response from them a few hours ago, but hadn't got something back from them as yet to see if they'll be able to properly connect and things like that. But with that being said, with these fights that are on the schedule and on the docket, makes for a lot that's going on. I did have something where I posted keys to victory for the main event on Friday night with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, right? So with it being like Thursday, I have like a little bit of time, from now pretty much like this evening, tomorrow morning and stuff like that. I'm gonna see if I could do keys to victory for those two main events there with Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz, and then also Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. So I might just do that for these big events that are coming up. And given that there's like a lot of action that's back to back to back, you might see a good amount of these videos for keys to victory for each of these fight cards, because you're gonna have these two this week, and then I'll be able to do for next week. You're gonna have the Pacquiao versus Barrios. Let's see what I would do on for that. Ben Rodriguez versus Fumileta Cafu, and then also the undisputed heavyweight title fight with Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. So have 3 keys to victory videos there on slate for next week. That's going to be something there for me to go ahead and try and do all of those. And that's on top of the weekly podcast is scheduled for Sunday. But hopefully I'll have enough energy for all of that. And then also with the midweek report scheduled for Wednesday. So like that's how we do it, man. We just handle these schedules, man. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna see also too, man, because I'm like I said, I'm working on the thing here with Elijah Pierce, but I also got some information that says that you might be able to see more guests here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel when it comes to the cards. So I want to see about that. But other than that, I was seeing here, I would say like give me about a couple more minutes, because like I said, I mean, if I ain't really like hear much from them, I would say I'll probably give them like another 5. You know what I mean? But outside of that, then I'll see about like getting back to them at a later time, because the thing is, like I said, I just received a message. I'm gonna either communicate with them or try to go direct on that front. So but I also wanted to do an interview with one of those fighters that's going to be on the card for Friday, July 25th, outside of this main event too. So we got to see how that goes. Just real quick with my guy Just Boxing. Shout out to Just Boxing. Says yeah, the presser was funny. Definitely enjoyed it for sure. Covered the press on the live stream. Can't wait to see the fights tomorrow and Saturday night. The all women's card is dope. Yeah, man. I mean, you got good set of fights there for that. Looking forward to it. Of course, with the main event there, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. You're gonna have Alicia Baumgartner in the co-feature bout against Jennifer Miranda. Her defending her undisputed titles there at the super featherweight division. But my fight that I'm looking at for Friday is for the unified super middleweight titles with Savannah Marshall versus Deja Green. Kind of like previewed it the other day. With both of these fighters, right? They had the fights with who had the other two belts there in the super middleweight division, Franchon Cruz-Zern, right? With Savannah Marshall getting a win and Shadasia Green getting a loss. So you're gonna see some good matchups. I saw the thing with the weigh-in. Shadasia Green looks like really focused here for this particular fight, and I know that with Savannah Marshall having an extended layoff here when it comes to boxing, that it could be something there where she might have to take a few rounds in order to get used to a few things. But if that's the case, Shadasia Green shouldn't waste no time to try to get to her. You know what I mean? So that's the thing on that. But yeah, on that front with the press conference today, the whole thing with Edgar Berlanga, man, it's like been Edgar Berlanga like acting up the whole week. He's been acting a fool the whole week. Just being real, he's been acting a fool the whole week. And to be honest with you, even though it's Hamza Shiraz having his first fight at 168, I think he could get the win. I'm saying it by decision. I've seen people say that it could be Hamza Shiraz by TKO. I don't know about that, but if it's Hamza Shiraz by TKO, ooh, man, that scene out in Queens, boy, it'll be wild if they see Edgar Berlanga get stopped there. And for him, being representing New York, all of these done. And if he ends up getting stopped by Hamza Shiraz, man, that would rock the boxing raves. You know what I mean? But you do have that on that front. But there, of course, he had the thing there with Shakur Stevenson too. He was doing a lot of talking. There were some fans out there that were talking to him. He was chopping it up right back. And it's kind of like something that you hadn't really seen much of from Shakur Stevenson outside of, at least for me, as far as I remember, his fight against Jamel Herring. I mean, he's probably had, like a couple of other instances like that, but that one that, lead up to the Jamel Herring fight was one that stands out, at least to me, on how Shakur Stevenson kind of like acted, leading into the fight. Now you see how he is here against William Zepeda, and I think that he's, really geared up to kind of like prove something here against William Zepeda. And for me, I think, if he gets the win here, he should be rated as the number one lightweight, because you're going to have two guys here that are within the top 5 in the lightweight division. It's the only fight that we've had in the top 5 at lightweight for some time now. And it's, for me, ever since Devin Haney versus Vasyl Lomachenko. I don't think Lomachenko versus George Kambosos Jr., when it was for the IBF belt, I don't think that was a top 5 matchup. But either way, with Vasyl Lomachenko winning and then Vasyl Lomachenko retiring, like, he's out of ranking. So you can't even talk about him. And of course, George Kambosos is at 140, and he got torched up by Richard Hitson. So he's out of the picture too. All right. So yeah, there you go. All right. With that being said, hold up, man. That was crazy. It was like an old dog like going off or something. I don't know what's going on. All right, yeah. So, but the thing here with Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, I'm looking forward to seeing Shakur Stevenson, how he deals with the volume of William Zepeda. But given that those odds is crazy, and it's funny because you got William Zepeda there at 33-0, number one in all the sanctioning bodies up until this month. You would think that he would have much closer odds. Nope, he don't. So that's the thing on that. I was just seeing here. Let me check something because I had let me refresh this thing. Because I thought I was able to see if I could get to brother Elijah here, because I did send him the link, and it should be able to get on. But let me see. If I could rehash it here real quick. So that's the thing there with Shakur Stevenson and all that, is that I'm seeing this, if he can do his thing as far as like handle business against William Zepeda or whatnot. So there you go. So yeah, that's mainly what I had as far as like those two bouts. You're gonna have the whole thing with the WBC super lightweight title on the line. Borto Puello versus Super Matias. You're gonna have David Morrell Jr. there against Imam Katayev, and yeah, Imam Katayev was tested by VADA here for this fight, so yeah, he's gonna be fighting David Morrell Jr. So there you go. So there you go with that. But with that being said, man, I'm gonna see here because I don't know. They might have something held up here for Elijah Pierce because I'm not able to see him being able to get on. So we might have to table that for another day here. But like I said, I got word that I could have a few more guests on leading into that fight week for OTX, right? So stay tuned for all of that. Okay. Also, here I wanted to kind of like say this here real quick before I roll out. I did see that little footage or whatnot from Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. as they're supposed to be involved in a press conference tomorrow for Ring 4. Of course, that's scheduled for November. As Brian Norman Jr. is going to be defending the WBO welterweight title against Devin Haney. And, they had a little bit of a back and forth words and stuff like that, saying that, hey, with Brian Norman saying, hey, man, I'm the WBO champion, and then Bill Haney and them was talking about, no, we the ones giving you the opportunity to fight us. And then they had like a whole little verbal back and forth spat. And then, they kind of like had a little bit of a shoving match between Brian Norman Jr. and Devin Haney. And then the, man, I forgot who the person's name is, but he's always with the Haneys. He stepped in and he like grabbed both Brian Norman Jr. and Brian Norman Sr. And then it almost seemed like all hell broke loose on stuff like that. And it was crazy. I saw like, one of my previous guests there, Adrian Clark, their Fighters First Management. He was involved in the whole thing. I think they had Jolene Mazzoni was in the whole scuffle or something. It was just it just looked crazy. You know what I mean? It looked crazy. They almost went down, down to the floor and all that type of stuff with all the pushing and shoving. It was just crazy or whatnot. So I thought that was something really interesting and something I guess to look forward to for tomorrow when they do have the press conference, because they had moved things for the weigh-in for Saturday's fights. It was supposed to be scheduled for 1 p.m. tomorrow. Now it's going to be at 12 p.m. tomorrow. And then they're going to have this press conference here for Ring 4 at 1 p.m. Right? So you got all of that there going on. So that being said, man, I haven't gotten any, response here from Brother Elijah. So we're going to see if we could push that here, back for a later date. You know what I mean? We're gonna push that back here for a later date, because I could arrange for something to, either have just him on, or maybe more people on. We're gonna see how we could figure that out. Okay. With that being said, you got Just Do Boxing here. Says, you think Tank versus Roach rematch happens in August? Well, as we know, with Lamont Rose Jr. and Lamont Rose Sr., they're over in Florida, out there by Plant City, where the Pro Box gym, Pro Box gym and everything is at. They usually do work there. Gary Jonas is, pretty much like their promoter of sorts, outside of, Lamont Rose Sr., right? So he does his work out there in Plant City. They say, like, they have some stuff out there for Tank Davis that he's supposed to be doing work. Usually he does work not in Baltimore, but over in Florida somewhere, right? But given what Coach Calvin Ford was saying, last weekend or around Sunday or whatever, that he ain't really talking about camp. So I don't know what's going on with that. And I've said this here for at least a week or so, a couple weeks, and this is also something with one of my colleagues here, brother Matt from Brunch Boxing. He said that we ain't really heard much from Tank, and we kind of pointed to July 19th as the date that they're going to announce it. I have pointed out that as of right now, the Nevada State Athletic Commission still has that particular date on their calendar, and the T-Mobile Arena is still listed as where they're going to, host an event. So until I see something that says August 16th is removed from that calendar, it's still, seeing that they're going to have this particular rematch. Now, if they do say that they're going to move it, nah. If it ain't August 16th, it ain't going to happen. I've said that before. If it's not going to happen in August 16th, it's not going to happen. That's for me. So, with that being said, I'm hoping that it's August 16th. Now, of course, there have been a couple of fights that have been tied to that date or that fight card. We all know what one of them is. They're supposed to be the WBC Super Featherweight title. They're with Wxxxlf Foster going up against Cool Boy Stephen Fulton. And well, you know how those fighters have kind of like shared their feelings about this whole thing about having these dates move over and over and over again. Now, we might see, if we don't see much from them, then maybe we got something. But if we hear from Stephen Fulton, then yeah. But because I'm just being honest, I don't really hear much from Wxxxlf Foster unless if he's responding to somebody. And I've been trying to set up an interview with Wxxxlf Foster for at least ever since he fought over at the Prudential Center last year. I've been trying to set up an interview with him since then, man. Then no luck. All right. But yeah, if you don't see an announcement of sorts by July 19th during the Manny Pacquiao Mario Barrios pay-per-view, it ain't looking good, cuz it ain't looking good. So, with that being said, that's what I got. As I mentioned there, I tried to schedule this thing here for around 8:30 or whatnot. But I'll see about rescheduling it here for a different time. But big ups for everyone that's been able to just stop by. Like I said, we got a lot of action that's coming up for tomorrow and Saturday. So y'all be on the lookout for of course, the Boxing Source doing coverage out there on Saturday. That is. So yeah. So I will be gearing up for that, and then hopefully once I get back, get my bearings back and all settled in, then we'll be able to have the Boxing Source podcast. As far as like this thing here with our guest Elijah Pierce, I'm gonna see if we could go ahead and reschedule it, have it set up for a different date, because I might be able to set up something to where I'll have more than one guest involved to kind of like talk about the fight card in general and boost up the fight card. So we'll see about building on that, man. But yeah, shout out to you, brother Just Do, man. And of course, Just Do Boxing does his thing here on this channel. So y'all support this channel if you haven't done so already. There, and I'll be able to do a few things here and there. I might have something be joining in with somebody tomorrow. So we're supposed to have, let me see, hold on a second. So I know that we're supposed to have as a special guest here for my guy G Funky Boxing. He's gonna have referee Jack Reese on schedule for 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, so he's gonna have Jack Reese there, referee, on at 1:30 Pacific time. That's 4:30 Eastern time. So that's gonna be there on the schedule on G Funky Boxing's YouTube channel there. So just being on the lookout for that. And here, like I said, I'm gonna see if I could reach out to somebody and try to do a reschedule for the special guest. Maybe it could be for Sunday, but I might have something else where if we arrange it to be like a certain day or a specific day, then that'll be available. Then you'll all be able to have, not just Elijah Pierce, but probably some more people as well. So just be on the lookout for that. With that being said, that is it for me, man. You'll usually don't have lives on Thursdays like that. Sometimes on Fridays for specific shows, but we have to like rearrange a few things to kind of like make that happen. But shoot, probably could do something. Probably could do something tomorrow, but it'll probably be on something else if I do that. So just stay tuned here with the Boxing Source and just follow what's going down. You see the social media thing there. You see the website down here and everything like that. So that's what we got. So with that, I'll be able to catch y'all later on. All right. Till then, peace out.